Hey guys, welcome to Coat Tutors. My name is Nick and I'm one of the co-founders. Along with Alex and Alden, today we're going to give you some pointers on your clinical rotations. Your clinical years consists of 2 years. The first year is going to be your core years, and you're going to be doing 6 different core rotations in either in internal medicine, surgery, psychiatry, family medicine, pediatrics, and OBGYN. And each of those rotations is 6 weeks, except for internal medicine and surgery, which are 12 weeks each. And then you're gonna move on to 4th year after taking your step 2. Your 4th year consists of your subspecialties and your electives and your audition rotations, and those rotations are set up by yourself. And you could pretty much go anywhere, but there's restriction to out-of-network programs where you have to fill out paperwork and stuff like that. So make sure that you stay in touch with the clinical advisors and ask them for any help you need to get those paperwork filed. Or you can stay within network. That's also fine. There's less paperwork. Now, like any of your other terms, clinical rotation has requirements as well. You don't have to go to small groups or labs anymore, but there's still attendance. And if you don't go, the resident or the attending would tell the coordinator, and that could get you into big trouble because you might get kicked out. So make sure you go in when you're scheduled to go in. Don't miss anything unless it's something like an emergency or something. Then make sure you contact the coordinator ahead of time and straighten everything out. Now, moving on would be patient encounter logs. SGU built a website where you could log all your patient encounters, and there's restrictions there's like a quota of what to do, of what type of patient they want you to see. So make sure that you see those patients and you record them so you could pass, or else you might get penalized for it. You will get firecracker for 2 years, and SGU is gonna mandate you to kind of use it. How do they mandate you? They make you take quizzes every single week, and those get graded and they're monitored. Some rotations, not every rotation, but some rotation might even ask for your results. So make sure you do them. And URL questions. And some people don't know about this. In your clinical training manual, there's a requirement of doing 60% of your URL questions for each rotation. So that's different amounts depending on what URL has for those rotations. Make sure it's still 60%. It's 60% currently right now, but it might change in the future. So make sure you go through your clinical training manual, and in case there's any additional stuff. All right. So now you're in the hospital. You're working with in real life and with other residents and attendings, working with real diseases and family members. So what's the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is to kind of stay open-minded, right? Be prepared to do anything and everything. Something as simple as grabbing someone's coffee, or to talking to a family member about the patient, right? So stay open-minded, be ready, be a team player. If your colleagues need help, make sure you ask them if you can help them, or if they need any help. Don't just sit around and scroll through your phone, go on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. That would make you look really bad. So make sure, if you're free, help out. It sometimes doesn't even have to be your team. It could be someone within the department. So stay busy. There's a bunch of essentials that we recommend. I mean, there's not a lot. It's not a bunch, I guess, but there's a couple of things, right? You want to make sure you have pens, different type of pens. Usually they would for official documents, they want black pens. So make sure you have black pens, but you also want a few of different colors, right? So that's only for your use, because everyone would get like a sheet of patients that your team is managing, and you want to mark them, and having different colored pens would make it a lot easier. It will stand out from the regular black and white. Have a notebook with you. If you need to write something down, jot something down, you have a book right there for you. You want to write, you could jot down reminders so you don't forget, right? Or you want to jot down like anything. So just make sure you have a book with you, right? Short coat, as you should know by now, is that you need a short coat, not a long coat. So make sure you get a short coat. The reference length is about 28 to 32 inches, but that might change depending on your body structure. So just make sure that nothing that's like as long as up to the knee or something. Somewhere around the waist, or maybe past the waist a little bit, not too much. Have a badge reel or a lanyard. So that is really useful, because usually if you go to a hospital, they give you an ID and just a clip for the ID. So having a badge reel or a lanyard that can extend, it makes it easier, because when you have to buzz yourself into a secure area, you don't have to crouch down and kind of buzz yourself in or take it off or anything. So make sure that a badge or a lanyard, you could just kind of like feed yourself in easily, right? So that's very useful, actually. Have a pen light with you, of course. You never know when you have to do a neural exam. You don't have to do a neural exam for everyone, but when you do, you have a pen light with you. And a lot of the times, the residents or the attending might forget theirs. So make sure that you have it with you, so you could let them borrow it, right? And stethoscope, always have your stethoscope, or else if you can't listen to your heart sounds or your lungs if you don't have one. So if you don't have your stethoscope with you, it's gonna make you look unprepared. And then tablet and laptop. This is not a requirement, but this is also very useful. So there's gonna be a lot of downtime, depending on which rotation you're in and which hospital you're in. During those downtime, you could use that time to study, because you don't have much time to study at home, and you might be tired most of the time after a rotation. So make sure you have your laptop or tablet with you, so you can study in the hospital. And at the same time, the hospitals and the computer at the hospital, they might be occupied by residents and attendings. So having your laptop with you, you can have remote access and do your patient notes as well. So it's good to have your laptop with you. For OBGYN and surgery, you want to have some extra materials. We listed some shears, gauze, and tape, but you might carry something else, like maybe a abdominal pad or something like that with you, because when you do your rounds, there's going to be a lot of wound changing, wound cleaning. So you want to make sure you have it with you, and be prepared to kind of provide whatever is needed. Wear your shoes. You want to have shoes that preferably sneakers, especially for surgery and OBGYN, because you can't wear shoes because you're going to be in scrubs. And make sure those shoes sneakers you're wearing, you're okay with it being dirty, like bloody and dirty. So that's that. For people that wants to do surgery and or OBGYN, make sure you want to get purchase like a practice suture kit from Amazon, so you could practice at home, because they don't usually have kits at the hospital, and the only time you actually get to suture is on a real human being, and if you mess up in the surgery, it's gonna make you look bad. So if you start to tying your knots well and knowing different types of suture techniques, and then they ask you to do it out of nowhere and you do it well, boom, brownie points. You know what I'm saying? So for people that wants to go into surgery or OBGYN, practice your suture. So what to wear? If you don't know, wear something professional, right? For guys, you want to wear shirts, you want to have your tie on, wear your pants and everything. For girls, you don't want to wear anything above your knees. You're not trying to go clubbing, so wear something professional. For most of the time, depending on your rotation, of course, you could wear your scrubs. The professional wear is usually like during orientations, or maybe during outpatient clinics. But most of the time, you should be able to wear your scrubs. For scrubs, usually they don't want anything that's mismatched, so don't wear like a blue and red and or anything. Don't wear anything that has prints like polka dot prints and everything. Don't wear those. They just want solid colors, solid matching colors. And this is different from hospital to hospital. So some hospital might not even let you wear your scrubs. So make sure you're following the requirements, because they could kick you out at any time. So if you haven't got your supplies yet and you need some, no worries. Coat Tutors got you covered, and we're selling a bundle with a badge reel, notebook with pen, and a lanyard on our website. So be sure to check it out. Now I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to pass it on to Alex, and he's going to talk to you a little more about how to impress your attending and get a good recommendation letter. Alex, your turn.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Hi, guys. My name's Alex. I'm one of the other co-founders of Coat Tutors, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about how to impress, letters of recommendation, and studying. So, they say first impressions are everything. So make sure you're dressed cleanly. You have a ironed, clean, white coat the first day of your rotation, and you're dressed in nice clothes. You want to be friendly with the staff. You want to impress the attendings, and you also want to impress the residents, because at the end of the day, everyone talks. One way to really impress people is to look up guidelines and, latest research on diseases that are showing up in the patient population. If you seem like you're really on top of your stuff, they're more likely to notice that. And another thing is that no task is beneath a medical student. We have to realize that as medical students, we are the bottom of the totem pole. And by that virtue, we have to do everything. So even if, it's helping with cleaning some poop, whether it's, bringing a blanket to a patient or whatever the task is, you should be doing it always. And there's always questions that attendings and residents may ask you because they want to teach you a little bit more. So if you study up, you can answer those questions. They also might be a little bit impressed by that. So now letters of recommendation. These are, really important for your ERAS application. So the people that write these are the attending physicians. These are the people you need to really, really impress. But like I said before, you also need to impress the residents and the staff, because everyone talks and they help the attending form an opinion of you when they write your letter. And a good way to gauge how you're doing is at the halfway point of a rotation, talk to your attending, ask them, I've been on your team for a while. How have I been doing? They'll give you some pointers. Make sure you definitely improve on those specific things they tell you. At the end, you can then ask them for a strong letter of recommendation. And then, the last thing is you should always be practicing getting letters of recommendation. In the beginning, it might be a little bit difficult and awkward, but, over time, it gets a little bit easier. All right. So how to study. Everyone is super tired from taking step 1, and people kind of forget about step 2. But it's also a really important exam, and you have shelf exams you need to do well on. So here's how to study during clinicals. We really like Anki at Coat Tutors, so we recommend the T-Zanki deck and the Dorian deck for online med-ed cards. And then obviously, like I said, online med-ed, that's the next resource that's really important. It's basically the bread and butter of clinicals. It's like watching Pathoma and watching Boards and Beyond during step 1 studying. Same thing. UWorld and ANBOSS are also great resources for practice questions, but I would probably say do UWorld first and then do some ANBOSS a little bit later. ANBOSS is also a really good reference resource. They have very good research summaries, and it's really, really good for review. And then finally, the practice NBMEs, they're also very good. Just like for step 1, the practice exams, there are, practice NBME exams for your shelves. and for Step 2 CK. So make sure you get those. And now how to prepare for Step 2 CK. So everyone is really focused on their Step 1 score, but with the new pass-fail, Step 2 CK becomes even more important. However, for you, most likely, Step 1 and Step 2 will be equally important. Maybe some more emphasis on Step 1. The key here is that for Step 2 CK, you actually need to score higher than you did in Step 1. If you score lower, it looks bad, especially as an IMG. So how do you do well on Step 2 CK? Well, first of all, you should do well in every single rotation. That is probably the best way to prepare for taking Step 2 CK. And then after you finish all your core rotations, spend about 2 to 4 weeks, whatever time permits, so that you can prepare for Step 2 CK. During this time, make sure you review all the resources throughout the year, and then you take all those practice MBMEs, and then you go and just take your Step 2 CK. So now I'm going to hand it off to Alden.
Well, thanks for handing it over to me. I'll continue from here. My name is Alden. So let's start by talking about Step 2 CS. So what exactly is Step 2 CS? So Step 2 CS is the clinical skills exam that you take after your third year is over. For IMGs, this is typically done before you apply for the MASH process. Essentially, it just shows the program directors that might be accepting you that, hey, like this person is able to talk to patients and essentially pass this exam. And what it comprises of is it is a 12-station exam. Within these 12 stations, you can have any sort of patient encounter that is from abdominal pain to maybe a simple cough. And it's really, really similar to the OSCEs you do on the island. So what is probably the best way to prepare for this exam? So what we found was that the best way to prepare for this exam was simply engaging in as many patient encounters at the hospital as you possibly can. By talking to as many patients as possible, by seeing a variety of patients, you will then develop the correct skills and good skills to see a standardized patient. Additionally, what I would recommend for people is you develop some sort of list of questions you want to ask every single patient. So regardless if you're seeing a patient for maybe, pancreatitis, or if you're seeing a patient for maybe just COPD exacerbation, there are certain things you want to make sure that you ask both patients. So, for example, don't forget to ask about allergies. Don't forget to ask about family history, those kinds of things. So develop this list or develop these certain questions you want to ask every single patient, and then from there, practice it. So practice it when you're on your family medicine rotation, practice when you are on your internal medicine rotation, practice on your surgery rotation, on your OB rotation, on your peds rotation. Practice your interviewing skills on every single rotation with as many patients as possible. That will be the best way for you to prepare for this exam. In addition to that, what we recommend students is we tell them, hey, it's probably a good idea for you to meet with a friend, maybe 1 or 2 friends, maybe about a month out before your actual Step 2 exam, and practice with your friends. You can then have somebody who will know what the exam will be graded like. They can provide you with feedback. The other good thing to do is consider getting the book First Aid Step 2 CS. This book has a lot of different notes and a lot of different patient encounters and a lot of different tips on how to do well on this exam. So I would really recommend that you get this book and you can practice the different patient encounters in this book with your friends during that 4-week period before you take the actual exam. Additionally, SU does something, provides us with something really cool, is that they give us a discounted Kaplan course for Step 2 CS. So essentially what this course is, it's a mock-up version of the real exam. You'll have standardized patients, you'll have a standardized room, and then Kaplan will provide you with a list of things that you did really good at and a list of things that you need to improve on. Additionally, Kaplan will tell you, hey, if you were to take this exam today, you would have either passed the exam, you would have been borderline, or you would have failed the exam. So that's really good information to know that maybe you're, 4 weeks or 3 weeks out and they tell you, hey, you would have passed this exam. Or if maybe, hey, you wouldn't have passed this exam, you need to work on these things, and then you can go ahead and work on those things before you take your real exam. So the way the Kaplan course works is that you essentially sign up for it, and then SGU provides it through your own tuition, through the tuition, and then you kind of get a little bit extra loan money during the months that you would take the course, and then it comes out of that amount. So it's a really good thing to do, and it's a really good way to also get additional practice. Okay, so let's kind of continue, and let's talk a little bit about research. So exactly how important is research? Well, I'm sure you have all seen this list, and which is the reason why I don't care to really emphasize this list, because everybody's seen it, everybody knows what I'm talking about when we look at this list. You can kind of see where my cursor is, and that is how far down the list research is considered for program directors. Essentially, what this survey does is it asks program directors how important is this thing for you to accept an applicant into your program. Well, research is all the way towards kind of like the middle bottom. There are certain things above it that are far more important. So things that you can control that are far more important would be, you've all probably taken step one, so maybe we can't control that. But if there's anybody who hasn't taken step one yet, so step one is probably the most important factor. After step one, we have letters of recommendation, we have your dean's letter, you have your step two exam, you have your personal statement, you have your grades on your actual clinical courses, on your actual core rotations, right? So the grades you get on the core rotations, did you honor it in that specific specialty that you want to apply for? What were the comments about you from those core rotations? What were the comments about you from that actual rotation that you want to apply into? So these are things that are far more important than research. However, if you're already going to be a good applicant, you're going to have a decent step one score. You're going to have a pretty good step two score. You're going to have pretty good scores on your core rotations. You're going to be a good person. You're going to get good feedback on your core rotations. Then research is the thing that sets you apart. And truthfully, I don't believe that it's this low. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of different programs that I've talked to and a lot of different program directors that I've talked to, whether it's maybe psychiatry, whether maybe it's internal medicine or general surgery, and it's even programs that are not affiliated with SGU, they ask you about research when you talk to their program directors. They say, hey, have you done any research? And so that makes me believe that research is actually a somewhat common thing that people have and people do. It essentially allows a program director to take a student, and they then know that this student is able to think critically about a topic that hasn't yet been presented in a textbook, and you're able to work your way through this topic, and then you're able to present this topic in written words. That's a really important skill. So I will say that, on this list of things, research is not as important as some of those others that I've mentioned. However, research is important, and it is something that I would recommend that if you can, definitely try to get it. Don't, sacrifice the other things, but if you can get it, it won't hurt you at all. If anything, it will help in certain competitive specialties. So now let's kind of talk about how do you go about getting research, and then what research is important. So one broad statement I will say is that any sort of research you do is good. It doesn't matter if you do research in psychiatry, but you want to apply general surgery. If you do research in maybe dermatology and you want to apply internal medicine, none of that matters. It's still showing the program director the same thing. It's that you are an applicant who can think on his own, and you are able to, go through either a case report or a case series or a cohort analysis or whatever the case may be, and you're able to write about it. So any kind of research is good. However, I will say that if you can, I would recommend you do research in whatever field you're interested in doing. So let's say maybe somebody's interested in doing, internal medicine. Well, the important thing to do then is ask your internal medicine residents or your internal medicine attendings if they have any research projects they're working on, if you can help them in any capacity. The reason for this is that if you get these papers published, it gives you a really good talking point on your interviews. So you'll realize that instead of somebody just asking you, hey, what did you do for research? Or, hey, I saw that you published this paper in a field that I'm not very familiar with. Can you tell me a little bit about it? It can then turn into a conversation about, hey, this is a really cool topic you researched. We're also doing something similar in our program, or we've seen something similar in our program. And now you can have a actually intellectual like dialogue between yourself and the people that are interviewing you during your interviewing season. So I definitely recommend that doing research in a specialty that you want to go into is definitely more preferred. However, any sort of research is going to be good for you to do. And I kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you go about getting research? And I think the best way to do this is that whenever you're in a certain, rotation, ask them if, hey, I'm really interested in this rotation. I'm really interested in doing this specialty. Is there any opportunity for me to do any research with you guys? If your program doesn't have that ability or that capacity, then we go to step 2. And step 2 is essentially us kind of throwing your net as far wide as you can. And what that means is I would really recommend just ask and email as many different programs, attendings or people that do research at that institute, and ask them, hey, I'm interested in this project, I'm interested in this field. I really would like to do some research. If you have anything, could I be a part of it? You can make that email very formal and then email just a very broad amount of attendings in different institutes across the nation. And I'm sure that, by emailing maybe hundreds of these attendings, at least one person will get back to you. And that's at least one way for you to get research. And who knows? What if that's that one program that gets back to you that ultimately ends up accepting you into their actual, specialty at their school, at their hospital? So, definitely, 2 ways to go about research is at your home institute, ask the residents or attendings for any research that you're interested in, or 2, essentially just send out a massive email to different people at different programs. Awesome. So, I want to kind of close this by thanking everybody for listening up to this point. We just want to let you know that Coat Tutors is always on your side, is that we want to help anybody as much as we can. So if you guys ever have any questions, always feel free to message any one of us on Facebook. We are always happy to answer any personal questions. If you are interested in any of the services we provide, or if you're just interested in talking to us for more of an extended period of time, on video chat, we always provide a free consultation. So, if you would like, you can go to our website, you can put in your information down, and we will provide you with a free consultation. But otherwise, if you have any other questions, always, feel free to message us and ask us. So, I just want to end this by saying thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. Good luck.